So the new trailer for 50 Shades Darker drops today. That's the sequel to 50 Shades of Grey. You don't want to hold your breath waiting for me to do a trailer reaction review, because that is not coming, nor will my review of the movie, because I won't be seeing it for the obvious reasons. And it's easy to make the jokes about how it started out as Twilight erotic fan fiction. It's easy to make the jokes about how horribly it's written, or all of the stuff about how you discover all the weird, kinky stuff people you know are into, or that there's a documented statistical increase in injuries related to sex toys and bondage since these books came out. That's all kind of amusing, but unfortunately I'm not going to talk about the fun side of this or rant trashing the plot or anything like that. I'm going to talk about the more serious aspect of this series. In my mind, is extraordinarily dangerous, and it really scares me that this is stuff that's being promoted in culture. And what I mean by that is that this is a story that deals with an abusive relationship and manipulation, and I think it's incredibly dangerous. So just to read a few quotes to kick things off, here we go. He'd probably like to beat the 7 shades of out of me. The thought is depressing. Please don't hit me, I whisper, pleading. I don't want him to beat me. Is that so unreasonable? Next time, you'll be in the cargo hold, bound and gagged in a crate. No, I protest, trying to kick him off. He stops. If you struggle, I'll tie your feet too. If you make a noise, Anastasia, I will gag you. Keep quiet. You wanted to know why I felt confused after you? Which euphemism should we apply? Spanked, punished, beat, assaulted? Well, during the whole alarming process, I felt demeaned, debased, and abused. See, the reason I wanted to talk about all of this is because I take this really seriously. If you've ever known someone that's been in a highly dysfunctional relationship, an abusive relationship, watch someone who is just being hurt, and not necessarily physically or maybe emotionally, when you've seen that and the abusive cycle and the rationale and the thinking that makes them go back to it, and then you see a movie or a book which fantasizes it, because the fantasy in these situations is that he really loves me. Which that's the fantasy here. You've got a girl that has low self-esteem and thinks that she's not pretty and all that interesting. Then you have the handsome rich guy that is very interested in her. And then because of the fantasy, because he's broken, she saves him and pulls him out of it. She frees him from this lifestyle of control and manipulation. See, that's the fantasy that anyone is in an abusive relationship has, is that, well, I can fix him. He can get through it if only I, putting the burden on themselves. In 50 Shades of Grey fantasizes it because the big happy ending of all of this is they get married and they have kids, which is an extraordinarily dangerous message to send to people that are potentially in abusive relationships. And see, I'm going to go off on a little bit of a rant here. Well, I guess all of this is a rant, because it's crucial that we understand that the messages, the stories that we encourage Hollywood and authors to write really say a lot about us and our worldview and our morality. And it really bothers me when you look at the stories and the movies that are getting shown, like Project X, which came out a few years ago, which is about a bunch of high schoolers throwing a party where everyone's on ecstasy and drinking and sexual debauchery and the whole deal's going on. And the celebration, what's awesome about it is that this is a crazy, insane party. And there are consequences to that, but they're not the actual real-life consequences that when things like that happen. And so these messages where we celebrate, fantasize, debauchery, and crazy, insane parties, when we celebrate and fantasize about abusive and manipulative relationships, it's extraordinarily dangerous in real life. You can just turn on your TV to see the consequences of this type of storytelling and this message of morality. You've almost certainly heard the story about Brock Turner, the swimmer at Stanford, who raped a girl that was drunk and passed out, I believe, and got sentenced to 6 months, and then that was shrunk down to 3 months, and now he's already out free. And you should be unbelievably livid that a rapist is out in 3 months. You should be livid that his dad is making statements like, hey, why should his life be ruined over 20 minutes of action? As if like he's in the frat house with him, like giving high fives to his son about, you know, the notches on his bedpost or something like that. Like, what on earth? Or a friend of his defending him, saying like, hey, this isn't a rapist. Rapists are guys that throw girls in like the back of their car and kidnap them. These aren't rapists. These are guys that got confused, misread the situation, had a little bit too much to drink, and made a little mistake. See, that's what happens in a culture that baits people to live all the way up to the line of insanity. We encourage people to live debased, immoral lives. We celebrate celebrities being completely crazy all the way up until they cross the line. As soon as you cross the line and you go actually insane, that you actually kill someone while drunk driving, where you actually rape someone, suddenly then we start chastising people. But all of the activity leading up to that, we encourage all of that. And we teach college students when they go off to college now that, hey, consent is the one thing that matters. So live crazy, just make sure that people consent before anything happens. So you take a bunch of people that are college students so they don't have great people skills, give them alcohol so they have even worse people skills and they're probably not very good at drinking responsibly, and put them all in a big gigantic group of drunk, irresponsible college students. What do you think's going to happen? See, we encourage a lifestyle where dangerous things happen. And that's the sort of story that Hollywood loves to promote. Or in the case of now 50 Shades Free, romanticizing an abusive relationship. See, why do I say all of this? The stories that we tell, that we buy, that we encourage, that we promote matter because it shapes the morality and the worldview of the people around us. And so whether that's Project X, party at college, live crazy. Hey, but consent, they have to have consent, which of course they do. But let's talk about all the wisdom leading up to that moment where of course terrible things are going to happen. Or if you encourage people to be in relationships where it's but he's got a good heart. He's manipulative, he's controlling, he's abusive, he's threatening, he's intimidating, but he's got a good heart and maybe I can fix him. Of course, terrible things are going to happen. We need to stop encouraging this kind of story. Stop treating it so lightly. Stop treating it like it's cute, because it's not. This stuff really matters. When you know people that have faced the consequences of this, when you know people that have been in just damaged relationships, abusive, controlling, manipulative, it stops being cute. It stops being funny. It stops being an easy joke about how this stuff started out as erotic fan fiction for Twilight. You see it for what it is, and it's a dangerous form of storytelling. And we need to tell all kinds of different stories. We need to talk about relationships like that. We don't need to romanticize them. We don't turn them into a fantasy. See, I just take this stuff so seriously because you just look at the news and the damage that's happening to people, and it seriously bothers me the way as a culture we encourage people to live all the way up to the line of wisdom. We chastise even sometimes talking about wisdom, and of course you shouldn't blame victims, and you should of course blame rapists and all of that. But we're not addressing the culture by talking about we should not be encouraging young people to be behaving the way they're behaving. We should not be encouraging people to be in dangerous relationships. And that's not victim blaming, it's wisdom. When something horrible happens, of course you go after the perpetrator. But you encourage people before all of this happens, live a wise life. Don't tell stories celebrating this nonsense. Anyway, I'm sorry to rant. I normally like to have more fun, but this series really bothers me. A lot of the stuff coming out of Hollywood really bothers me just because of the people I know, the people actually damaged by this stuff, and that we you see all these articles about rape culture and how dangerous it is and how we need to understand consent, and then 50 Shades of Grey makes $600 million at the global box office. They're going to make a trilogy out of these, and people flocked out to go see it. And it's a movie series about an incredibly dangerous, abusive, manipulative relationship. And we're just teaching so many dangerous messages to people, celebrating such dangerous stuff that it really bothers me, and it should bother you too. Please don't go see this movie. Tell people not to go see it, and not out of don't go see kinky weed stuff. Not just that, but because this is not a message that should be spread, and not a lifestyle. And movies that tell stories and romanticize and fantasize stories that lead to dangerous behavior like this, I don't normally do little rants like this on serious stuff. I normally just like to talk about the fun of movies, but there's a movie coming out that I don't want to come out because I think it sends a dangerous message, and I want to make sure that's clear. That's what I stand for. I like to be honest in here and tell you what I really think, and that's what I really think. What do you think? Comment in the comments section. I'd love to have a really lively debate about something that really matters, because I think this stuff does affect culture, not because people are just automatons that follow whatever they see or anything like that, but it's because the stories shape our worldview, and what we engage in shapes our thinking, and that matters. And what we think as a group of people moves us as a directed, creates a current of culture. And celebrating this story, it's dangerous for our culture, and it really bothers me. So thank you for watching. Yeah.